At the beginning of this year, I decided to stop playing competitive multiplayer games, and since then, I've been going down the single player rabbit hole looking for different games I could make fun videos on. And so far, easily the most recommended game by multiple of my friends has been the game Hollow Knight. And so I thought, what better way to introduce myself to the game than to beat the whole game and its true final boss without dying a single time. Now if you're like me and have absolutely no knowledge of Hollow Knight coming into this, don't worry, because I'll be explaining everything that I've learned during the making of this video. From what I've gathered, in Hollow Knight we play as the Knight, a little guy who after being born in the abyss of Hollow Nest soon ventured out and lost all of their memories. After returning to the kingdom, we now have to make our way through the underground, exploring and upgrading the little dude until we're strong enough to fight the Hollow Knight. For this challenge, the rules are as follows. I must play on the Steel Soul mode, which is basically the hardcore version of Hollow Knight where once you die, the save gets deleted and we have to start over again from the very beginning. Secondly, like in my Elden Ring no death run, I'm allowed to quit to the menu to return to my last bench. However, I'm not allowed to quit out during boss fights or just because I'm low on HP. Lastly, to end the run, I have to beat the true final boss of the game being Radiance. Because if I was to end at the Hollow Knight, it wouldn't be much of a challenge because I'd get to avoid a boatload of hard bosses and dangerous sections. Now originally, this video was actually planned to be a full 112% Steel Soul challenge, but... man. I hate this face.
No.
No. I think I'm actually just not doing this video anymore. Last thing I wanted to say, the path that I used in this video was one that I made by myself, and it's definitely not the craziest route in terms of skips. So for this reason, I don't really go into insane detail of each room going from point A to point B, and only explain what I think is necessary. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Starting the run, we begin with only one ability which allows us to heal ourselves, provided that we have enough soul in our meter. We do have to be careful when using this however, as it has a 1 second wind up, meaning if you try to panic heal very often, it can result in taking more damage than necessary. After crawling our way through King's Pass and jumping off the ledge, we reach the main hub of the game being Dirtmouth. We then make our way around the left side of Forgotten Crossroads, breaking all of these outcrops along the way to get 50 Geo, which will allow us to unlock our first stag station. As we progress further into the game and find other stag stations around the map, we're able to warp between them. Acting as a fast travel around the map, this allows us to skip some tedious running between distant areas. After buying the station, we can follow through this path, which after climbing these steps will take us to the first boss fight of the game, False Knight. Now, when I first played this game, admittedly I'd struggled quite a bit, especially considering how different the game is compared to others I've played more recently. However, if you're struggling on this boss, then maybe this game just isn't for you. False Knight is the introductory boss of the game, with his only interesting quality being his gimmick. Usually in Hollow Knight, when we hit enemies with our nail, our soul meter builds up, which allows us to heal or use spells if we're later in the run. For False Knight however, while he's inside his armor, any attack you hit him with won't give you soul. The only time you can get soul from him is when you stagger him, in which he'll fall out and pop his head out for you to go to town on. As for the rest of the fight, there are really only 2 moves to watch out for, each with extremely telegraphed windups. When he first jumps towards you, on his second jump he'll swing his mace to widen the area of attack, in which we either take a step back or walk under him to dodge. When he jumps backwards however, he'll do a big wind-up slam move, which will send a shockwave across the ground in the direction he's facing. And so to dodge this, simply jump over it and wail on him until he breaks through the floor and face plants below, ready for us to finish him off. Now that False Knight's dead, we pick up the city crest, which will allow us to access the City of Tears a bit later on. Before moving too far, we collect all the geo from the chest on the left and make our way up to the Snail Shaman's lair, where we get the first spell of the run, the Vengeful Spirit, aka the Fireball. I think now's a good time to mention that spells in this game are pretty OP. While our base unupgraded nail deals a whopping 5 damage per slash, each Fireball will deal 15, meaning it's our heavily preferred method of damage for this run. The catch with spells is that they use the same soul meter and amount of soul as the healing, so every time we use a spell, we're burning through a heal until we can build the meter back up. After making it around the testing grounds and killing the final enemy, we can make our way through Green Path until reaching this room where we meet Hornet for the first time. Now usually, what's intended is to go all the way around the rest of Green Path, as we currently can't reach the ledge she's on without any movement upgrades. But instead what we can do is if we find and lure this mosquito from just below, we can do what's called a pogo, which allows us to bounce off the top of the enemy and make it up to the ledge. Along the way, we want to be collecting every bit of geo we can, so that we can build up our economy for all the purchases later in the run. Once we reach this room, we head right and have to face off with a Moss Knight, which if we have a full soul bar, we can hit him once and then with 3 fireballs to finish him off. Otherwise, we have to bait out one of his attacks, then hit him right after he does the first swing, and repeat until he's dead. The next room we have to worry about houses the Vengefly King, who we want to kill for its fast money. The fastest way to kill it is to once again have a full soul meter going into the fight, where you can then pogo over it as it dives, and spam fireballs as it comes to a stop. Last thing, quickly before entering the Hornet arena, we want to head down to the Green Path Stag Station in the room below and sit at the bench, so that we can do a trick right after the fight. Now all that's left is to climb back up to the room where Hornet's been waiting for us to test our strength. The Hornet Protector isn't the craziest fight in the world, but requires you to start understanding how to react to certain telegraphs. In this fight, we want to avoid getting hit as much as possible, so that we're able to spam as many spells as we can. For this fight, Hornet has 4 main moves, the first of which where she'll dash towards us, telegraphed by when she leans forward. To dodge this, we have to do a full hop as soon as she leans down to get enough height to jump over her. Once you get more used to this fight, you can also start incorporating a pogo in while dodging to help build up more soul. Hornet's most common action in the fight is for her to jump, and so for this reason we can't just stay on her head pogoing her unlike other enemies up until this point. While jumping, Hornet has 3 options for what she can do. She'll either fall down like normal, throw out her Beyblade attack, or do a charging dash for which you either walk backwards or under her depending on your position as she starts the move. Lastly, the move that tripped me up the most is where she stays still and throws her needle at us before sucking it back. For this, we can go for a hit while jumping over the initial throw, and then jump it on the way back with another hit for extra damage. After staggering her a couple times, she'll finally give up and run away, leaving us with the Mothwing Cloak, which will allow us to dash for the rest of the run. Now from here, usually we'd have to meet the Dreamers, who would tell us to leave the seals that they placed on the Hollow Knight alone. But instead, we can skip the whole cutscene and all the running afterwards by quitting out to the save and re-entering it, therefore teleporting us back to the last bench we sat on, while saving our progress and the dash. Our next goal is to make our way to the Mantis village, so that we can beat the Mantis Lords. But first, we have a few things to grab. From where we are, we have to make our way back through Green Path and then through Fog Canyons until we arrive at Queen's Station. On the way, make sure not to hit these big jellyfish, because once you hit them, their brains will come flying at you before exploding, dealing 2 out of our 5 health. Now that we're at Queen's, make sure you sit at the bench, before we then take the Stag Station back to Forgotten Crossroads. From here we go down and right, and take out the Gruz, so that we can visit Subaru. While we're here, it's important that we don't sit down in front of her house, so that we can keep our last bench as the one at Queen's. And now that we're here, we can buy one of the best charms in the game, the Shaman Stone. The Shaman Stone buffs each of our different spells by a different amount, but for now, we only need to worry about the Fireball, which is now 33% stronger, putting it at 20 damage per Fireball hit. After we grab that, we want to free the goat Sly from his infection, where now he'll move to Dirtmouth and open up his shop for us later. Now that we've done all we need here, we can quit out to instantly put us back to Queen Station, where we can now sit at the bench, put the Shaman Stone on, and then leave out the top right to make our way through Fungal Wasteland. To make it to Mantis Village, we have to pass through this arena with 2 Mushroom Ogres. My strategy for these guys is to nuke one down as fast as possible with the fireball, and from there you can hit the other one like normal without having to worry about being mortared from behind. Also, as a bonus for beating them, upon defeat the ogres drop our first charm notch. In Hollow Knight, each charm has a certain weight to them, each taking up a different amount of charm notches. Originally, we start with 3 notches, which is barely enough to wield the Shaman Stone, and so each extra notch we get will allow us to equip more and more charms, allowing for even stronger builds. For this run, we only require a total of 5 notches, and so this is the first of only 2 extra ones we need in this run. Now that we've killed the ogres, it's time to head into the Mantis village, where we first hit this lever over on the left and head back around to grab our second movement upgrade of the run, the Mantis Claws. These allow us to both slide down and bounce off walls, which is almost a necessity as we move into later areas. After doing the mini obstacle course, we can use this lever to open up the giant trapdoor and make our way to the bottom of the next room while opening all the doors along the way. Finally, after dropping down, we get to challenge the Mantis Lords. The Mantis Lords act as a skill check for what we've learned so far, where we have to quickly read each of their attacks so that we can respond before it's too late. We also have to learn how to incorporate punishes into the fight, because once they start moving, those will be your only chance at dealing any sort of damage to them. So, let's go over what they can do and how we can deal with each move. In phase 1, we only have to deal with one Mantis Lord, who can do 3 simple moves, each with slight variations. For the first and easiest move, the Mantis Lord will jump down from either side of the arena and dash to the other side. For this move, all we have to do is pogo over them to get our punish in. For its next move, the Mantis Lord will spawn above us, where we have to either walk or dash out of the way depending on our positioning. Lastly, the Mantis Lord will hold onto the wall and shoot out a projectile that travels like a boomerang. Note for this move, we have enough time to heal in both variants, however, we need to confirm which one we have before we start the heal. If it starts at the bottom, you need to jump over it first, and if it starts at the top, you can start the heal instantly and jump it as it comes back. Now here's where the fight gets interesting. After defeating the first Mantis Lord, the other 2 will now come down to fight you at the same time. In this phase, the Mantis Lords mostly share the same moveset with the first, however there are a few differences in how we have to play the fight. Starting off, make sure you don't stand too far to the left or right, as when the Mantises come in for their dash move, they'll start right on top of you, which is usually how I end up losing most of my health. The only other change we have to worry about comes in from the boomerang move, where now, the Mantis Lords will shoot a projectile from both sides. You can once again use this move to heal, and depending on which variant you get, you can even get 2 heals off by standing in the middle of the arena, slightly to the right. After slowly chipping them down, one by one, they will fall, and we can now head back up to their treasure chamber for the 1000 Geo and the Mark of Pride charm, which will come in handy later. Alright, now that we've beat the Mantis Lords, we want to start progressing the story further, but to do that, we're going to have to do some more setup first. Starting off, once we leave the Mantis village, we can head further down, passing this charm so that we can free Bretta. The reason we do this is because once she's free, she'll go back to her house in Dirtmouth, where we can grab a Mars fragment from at some point down the line. We then head upwards to the entrance of the City of Tears, where we can place our city crest and make our way to the city's ground floor. From here, we make our way to the far left, climbing up the cliff to meet the Nailsmith for the first time. In Hollow Knight, we can upgrade our nail a total of 4 times, with each time adding an extra 4 damage to the swing. For now, the first upgrade only costs 250 Geo, but later upgrades will require us to get an extra item called Pale Ore. For this run, we're only looking to upgrade our nail 3 times, requiring a total of 3050 Geo and 3 Pale Ore. Reason being, because the last upgrade requires a whole nother 3 ore and 4000 Geo, and so even without worrying about the extra Geo, the final 3 ores can take an extra couple hours on their own to grab, and so in my opinion, it's not worth it for only 4 extra damage. After upgrading our nail, we can make our way across the scaffolding in the first room so that we can enter this building blocked off from the floor. Along the way, we can grab this relic, which we can now sell along with the other one from the Mantis Vault as soon as we visit Mom in the room below. At this point, we should have around 2000 geo, so after we hit the lever to open up access from below, we can make our way up to the city storeroom stag, making sure not to buy this bench as it'll put us 150 geo behind for the rest of the run. Now finally, we can travel back to Dirtmouth, grab the Mars fragment from Bretta's room, and pay a visit to Sly's shop. Now that we're here, we can purchase the Lumaflight Lantern, which lights up rooms that are usually fully dark. This allows us to access the Crystal Peaks without needing the latest spell Desolate Dive, which we can now save until we're doing other stuff around the same area. From Forgotten Crossroads, we can now enter this room where we can pay a 50 geo toll to make it into the peaks. At this point, we're looking for two items. The first is the shopkeeper's key, which we can grab along the way to the second. After grabbing the key, once we revisit Sly, he'll have new items to sell for us, with one item in particular being important for a very big upgrade. Once making it through the annoying ass laser bugs, we go up and around until we reach this big room, where we can do the mildly difficult platforming to grab our next important movement upgrade, the Crystal Heart. The Crystal Heart lets us charge up and blast across the screen in a straight line, flying over huge gaps that normally we'd never be able to cross. While it does come in handy a few times throughout the run, the main reason we need it now is because it allows us to reach a key area much earlier than intended. It's also around this point we're looking to get our 6th mask. Scattered around the maps are different mask fragments, which after we get 4 of, turn into a full mask, giving us 1 extra hit point. Now we already grabbed the one from Bretta's house earlier, and so now we need 3 more. The easiest to go for now is both the one outside of Queen Station and the one in the Forgotten Crossroads that we weren't able to grab without the Mantis Claws. And then lastly, the one from Sly that cost 150 geo. However, don't worry if you don't have enough geo for it right now, we'll just have to do this next section on 5 HP, which isn't really a big deal. Finally, after the collectathon, it's time to start actually progressing the story. From just outside where we killed the Grozmother, we can jump onto the wall and start a crystal dash at the very top. This will allow us to reach the blue lake through a secret wall that's intended for us to come from the opposite side. We now dash across the lake and open up the floor above us so that we can reach the room where we have our second encounter with the Dreamers. Now, to know what we're doing from here, I think it's important to understand the story of the game for now. Basically, at the very beginning, the bugs of Hellenist worshipped a god named the Radiance. However, over time, a new leader named the Pale King came to power after offering the bugs higher thought and building Hellenist into a big and great civilization. Because of this, Radiance was forgotten, and obviously, being a god, Radiance didn't like that, and so she decided to come back in the form of the Infection. To counter this, the Pale King made vessels to try and contain the infection, and eventually made the one that was named the Hollow Knight, who was almost perfectly pure and able to trap the Radiance. Shortly after, the Hollow Knight along with the Radiance was locked away in the Black Egg Temple, the heart of Hellenist. However, because the Hollow Knight wasn't completely pure, the seal wasn't strong enough on its own, and so to reinforce it, 3 powerful bugs named the Dreamers sacrificed themselves to an eternal sleep, binding their essence to the temple's door and sealing the Radiance inside. Our goal, which we see in this second encounter, is to find all the Dreamers and take out their seals one by one, so that we can take out the Radiance once and for all. Once we complete the encounter, we unlock the Dream Nail, which allows us to collect a resource called Essence by entering dream battles, of which there are 2 kinds. First, we find these warrior graves around the map. When we hit these with our Dream Nail, they spawn the bosses into our realm, which upon deaths will give us a bit of essence. Now, these bosses aren't really ideal for us because they don't give much essence and some of them are a nightmare. But in saying that, we do need to kill a few of the easier ones so that we have enough essence. The second kind is where we can revisit some major bosses and enter into their dreams. These fights significantly crank up the boss's speed and difficulty, but reward us with much more essence, and most importantly, losing in these fights doesn't end the run. In Hollow Knight, if you die in the Dream Realm, you simply wake up where you left off, and so because it doesn't count as a death in the game, it also doesn't count as a death in this challenge. Also, for whatever reason, my dumbass thought the best place for my camera is right over the essence meter, and so whenever we need to see it, I'll just display a total count of essence. As soon as we come out of the dream, we meet Seer for the first time, who tells us to return to her after we collect more essence. In this run, we need a total of 1800 essence so that Seer gives us the Awoken Dream Nail, which is required for an area at the very end of the run. Once leaving Seer's room, we can head down and right into the Resting Ground Stag Station, which we fortunately only need to hit a lever to activate. Now we can head to the room left of where we met the Dreamers and fight our first Dream Warrior, Zero. In this fight, Zero will send his spears flying at us from above. For this, all we have to do is jump up to hit him and spam him with fireballs until he's dead. An interesting thing to keep in mind is that in this fight, Zero gets pushed back by the fireballs, allowing one fireball to hit him multiple times. This interaction also shows up with other bosses throughout the run, and is one of the biggest reasons why spells are so stupidly strong in this game. Now that we've killed Zero and taken his 100 essence, we can make our way down to the other side of the City of Tears using this giant elevator. Right now, we want to unlock King's Station, which costs 300 Geo, but most likely we don't have enough Geo right now, so we'll have to come back in a minute or so. First sit at the bench so that we can quit out back to the station. Then, we can bounce above the station to grab another relic. Now, we can head out of the station and head to the top left, where we can enter through this window in one of the rooms to the left. From here, after nuking these innocent civilians, we can jump through the right wall to find and kill this golden husk, who upon death will drop over 400 Geo. Now, we can pay our friend Lem a visit, put us at around 1200 Geo, which we can now spend on the King's Station Stag, the 4th Master Shard if you hadn't bought it already, and the Elegant Key from Sly. To continue moving forward, our next steps are to head back to the City of Tears to upgrade our Fireball and beat the Soul Master. Starting at the City Storage Stag, we can head down to the big platform room and grab this simple key that'll come in handy soon. Now, we head into the Soul Sanctuary and take the first left with this elevator that goes up to this locked door. Here, we can use the elegant key that we just purchased to open the door, and after we walk in, we'll be met with a boss fight against a Soul Warrior. Soul Warriors are recurring mini-bosses throughout the game, and this one in particular is probably the hardest of them all, considering that we have these little ghosts constantly spawning while we fight him. The Soul Warriors share a very similar moveset to the Mantis Lords, with a dash, slam, and then a projectile attack where they shoot a fireball at us. Mainly, the difficulty of this fight comes from the added threat of the ghosts, so what you want to do for this fight is to stay around the edges of the arena so that when you fireball, you hit both the warrior and the ghosts. As long as we don't mess up the fight too badly, we can now head above and upgrade our Vengeful Spirit into the Shade Soul. This upgrade makes a huge difference, and so it's important that we collect it as early as we can. Compared to the base Fireball, Shade Soul deals 30 damage without Shaman Stone and 40 with, meaning a 2x damage increase along with the taller and longer hitbox. After grabbing this upgrade, most enemies and especially bosses that are susceptible to multi-hits will get nuked. Now, it's time to make our way through the Soul Sanctum, where we have to deal with the worst enemies in the whole game. These guys named Soul Twisters spawn in and shoot fireballs at us like every enemy in this area seems to do. The worst part about them is that whenever you get close to them, they start spam teleporting everywhere, making it super hard to just hit them. Luckily, one upgraded fireball is all that it takes to take them out, but when you don't have enough soul, then good luck not getting cornered when multiple are chasing you at once. Last thing before the boss, we have to make it through this horrendous room I've heard people call the Room of Pain. In this, all we have to do is climb the steps to open the door and reach the boss room. But along the way, three Soul Twisters spawn in to all fight you at once. For this, you can either take them out one by one, or what I did sometimes was I'd spawn all three at once and try to fireball them all together. Just do whatever feels most comfortable to you. After opening this shortcut, we can head through to the outside room where we fight.
This shit ain't nothing to me, man.
Wait, what? What is that?
Ah! I'm getting too much money!
After making our way through the Soul Sanctum, we get to fight the Soul Master. Besides Radiance, I think this guy, or at least his dream counterpart, is my favourite boss in the whole game. To go over his moves, he first teleports all around the arena, shooting these fireballs at you. For this, we want to dodge under the fireballs so that they can get instantly destroyed by hitting the floor. I was not very good at this.
Stop jumping over it, they only do 2 fireballs.
It's so like... For his next move, Dracula Flows glides above us in a straight line with 4 fireballs circling around him. For this move, we have to jump 2 fireballs while he travels the first way, and so that gives us the opportunity to get 2 hits in. Once he reaches the other side of the arena, he'll TP away and the fireballs will make their way back where they started. And so while this is happening, if we stay around the middle of the arena, we're able to heal as much as we want. He also has another variant of the glide where he travels across the floor with no fireballs, so just like every other boss up to this point, we can simply just pogo over him with 2 hits. Lastly, for the first phase, he can spawn above us and slam into the ground, which will cause a shockwave that travels in both directions. There's also another variant for this where he can spawn above us, start his slam and then cancel it halfway down to bait us into jumping, where he'll then actually do his real slam to make us get hit. To avoid getting caught off guard by this, we can always dash forwards before we jump, making it so that the timing of our jump can make it over both variants. And now that he's dead, we can pick up our next spell.
This shit ain't nothing to me, man. I'll fucking kill you.
In phase 2, he'll start by constantly spawning above us to spam slam attacks. For this, you can actually pre-jump him to hit him as he spawns in, which will allow us to deal more damage and end the fight sooner. After he's done spamming, he'll stand still and spawn a bunch of fireballs, which we can dodge the same way as in the first phase. All that's left is to hit him a couple times and he should go down, netting us the best spell in the game, Desolate Dive. Desolate Dive lets us do a slam move of our own, and if that was it, it would probably be the worst spell in the game. The slam is made of 2 moves, the initial dive which deals 15 damage pre-Shaman Stone, and then the shockwave after that deals another 20. With Shaman Stone, the damage is increased by roughly 50%, meaning if we do a perfect dive that hits both parts, it'll deal 53 damage. The reason this move is so OP however, isn't because of its damage. Both Desolate Dive and its upgraded counterpart upon use grant us with 0.4 seconds of invincibility, which we can use to dodge attacks or get out of tight situations. Now that we've taken down the Soul Master, we're able to take on his dream variant named Soul Tyrant for 400 essence. Because we can't die, I personally thought it was best to get it out of the way now while we're here, but you can save it for later once we're a bit more upgraded and gotten all the movement upgrades if you're struggling to do it now. For Soul Tyrant, only one move has somewhat changed by having 2 fireballs added to it, but even with that, the way we deal with the fight is the exact same, just sped up, so I don't believe I have to cover it here. Now that we've taken out the Soul Tyrant and gotten his 400 essence, I now found it was best to start setting up a later dream boss by taking out the Dung Defender. To reach him, we first have to travel down into the Royal Waterways by using the simple key that we grabbed earlier. Now, we can head left and drop down all the way until we reach this bench. After grabbing the bench, we can quickly grab another mask fragment by jumping back up and crystal dashing to the left of this giant room. Once quitting back, we can now travel to the right and make our way directly to the Dung Defender. I never really thought about this until writing the script, but I really love some of the boss's dialogue. First we had Hornet, and then now we have this guy. Dung Defender isn't an easy fight, but gives us a lot of opportunities to heal, so if we play it right, this fight shouldn't be too difficult. Especially if we abuse the Desolate Dive spell that we just unlocked. To get into his moves, first of all, he swims through the ground as if he's Senior Pink. I personally struggled with this move for quite a while, until I realized that you're meant to pogo over him as soon as he dives underground. For his next move, he can throw these dung balls that bounce around the arena before turning into a ball himself. Often with this move, as long as you're keeping track of all the balls, you can get a couple of heals off. Also for this move, if you somehow manage to juggle him, he won't do any more moves until you stagger him. But I wouldn't really count on doing that to kill him, as there's an easier method to KO him with his next move. In this move, he once again dives underground and chooses a spot to bounce out with a ton of balls coming out with him. If we have enough soul to cast a spell, we can use Desolate Dive, which will knock him out of the ground and stun him for a few seconds. If not, we can stand close to him as he jumps out to be in a good gap to continue hitting him while also not getting hit by his extra dung balls. And with a bit of Desolate Dive spam, he should go down. With the Dung Defender taken out, if we have enough soul left over, we can open up this ground where we can fight his Dream variant after we kill all of the Dreamers. While we're down here, we want to grab the King's Idol on the right for an extra 800 geo, but if you didn't have enough soul to open the ground, don't worry, as I'd also usually forget about this idol until later anyways. Finally, for the waterways, we can run around and grab Isma's Tear, which will allow us to swim in the acid waters found around the map. From where we are now, we have a couple of options for what we can do next, but the order I'm going to go through them is what I believe is the most safe and efficient way to do them. Starting off, after making our way out of the waterways, we can make our way back to Subaru and unlock our 5th charm notch. After this, I like to visit Sly to buy my 2nd Mast fragment from him, which we can then also head right to the entrance of the underground and bounce off the walls a couple times to grab this Hello Nest seal. Now, we stag to Queen Station, where we can make our way up just past where we fought the ogres to visit the Leg Eater. The Leg Eater is a merchant who sells the very strong fragile charms, charms that upon death will break and leave you unable to use them until you pay to have them fixed. Fortunately for this run, we can't die anyways, so these charms have absolutely no downside. Now, you might think that the fragile strength charm would be the way to go, as it doubles the damage of the nail, but what I found was that the damage of spells is more than enough to deal with all the bosses in this run, and that I was severely underestimating the strength of the fragile heart charm. I'll bring this up more later when I talk about my journey with the challenge, but for now, the charm will give us an extra 2 masks for the cost of 350 geo and 2 charm notches, making it almost a no-brainer for a challenge like this. Looking at what we're doing next, we have to make our way into the ancient basin through the entrance in the City of Tears. But before we can grab the stag station, we need our last movement upgrade, the Monarch Wings, as the ledge to reach the area we need requires us to double jump to reach it. To get the Monarch Wings, we need to take out Broken Vessel, which while we're there, we can also beat its stream counterpart, the Lost Kin. While we make our way over to them, we can buy this bench for us to quit out to later, and after following forward for a bit, we reach their arena. Broken Vessel was another vessel created by the Pale King, who just like us, had escaped the Abyss and met their tragic fate in the ancient basin. As soon as we enter the arena, a ton of the infection-carrying light seeds take over the vessel and start to attack us. Before I cover the moves, while they aren't attacking, Broken Vessel and Lost Kin will get pushed back by fireballs, so whenever a good opportunity arises, we can multi-hit them with the fireball to deal a ton of damage. Also, while we fight them, they'll spawn infected balloons around the arena. These guys often interrupt our heal, especially in the Lost Kin fight where even more of them spawn, so we want to be taking them out as soon as we can. Just like the Ghost in the Soul Warrior fight, we can line them up with the boss and hit them all together. But if you can't do this, they should die in one nail slash, so just keep that in mind. In this fight, there are 4 different attacks that they can do. The first 2 are dash attacks, where they can start on the floor, or right after a jump to switch it up. After this attack, you have a short time frame where Broken Vessel won't be attacking, so you can hit him with a fireball here. Next up, we have a slam move, but what makes this one different to others is that after they touch down, infection bubbles will fly out and up from them. So for this, you need to be able to recognize the move and get out of the way so that we have enough time to react to the bubbles. Finally, they'll start headbanging while letting out even more of the bubbles that I just mentioned. For this, we have 2 options of how to deal with the move. We can either stay far away and dodge the bubbles normally, or we can pogo on top of them and Desolate Dive from above to iframe the rest of the move. After taking our Broken Vessel, we can now reset the room and enter its stream to take out Lost Kin to collect its 400 essence. Don't worry if you're weak coming out of the fight, as there's no enemies on the way to the Monarch Wings, and after we pick them up, we can finally go back and unlock the hidden stag station. Alright, it's now time to take out our first streamer. But first, you guessed it, it's time for some more setup. First up, we want to get our nail to +2, which if you remember before, will take 2 pale lore. The first one we can grab is just past this arena with 2 lesser Morleks. and the second one will be at the very top of the crystal peak. For extra speed, after killing the Morlex and grabbing the ore, you can quit out to return to the station bench, and afterwards we can head to the Forgotten Station to enter into the peaks the same way as before. Whilst we're in the peaks, we can also grab the upgrade for Desolate Dive, Descending Dark. Like with the Fireball, the upgrade does significantly more damage. Now, the spell has an extra shockwave after it, so along with the first shockwave being buffed to 35 damage, it now does another 15 afterwards if the boss stays in range. Including the Shaman Stone buff, altogether the spell can now deal a total of 88 damage per use. But again, the main use for this spell remains its iframes, which stays the same length. Moving on from here, we can collect this King's Idol from behind this big spiky guy, and then follow this path to the top of the map, where we can collect our second pale ore. Now from here, we can go back to King's Station, visit Lem to sell all the relics we picked up, and upgrade our nail to +2. Looking forward, we have a pretty convenient path to get to our first streamer while also knocking out some other stuff along the way. From Queen's Station, we head out to the top left and enter Queen's Garden from this room that forces us to swim through the Acid Lake. This area has some pretty difficult enemies, so we want to take our time and make sure we aren't getting hit too often. Near the end of the first room, above us will be an opening. We want to go through this opening, open up the lock gate with the lever and head up to the right to this higher area. Over here, once we enter the overgrown mound and complete this little mosquito arena, we unlock the Howling Wraith spell. This spell is the highest damage output in the entire game, dealing a total of 13 damage or 20 with the Shaman Stone for 3 different bursts, totaling up to 60 damage per cast. Keep in mind, this is only the base variant, so 60 damage already being to keep up with the multi-hits of the Fireball is pretty insane, especially because when we upgrade it later, the damage output will be multiplied twofold. Unfortunately, the use cases for this spell is pretty limited, only being useful when the boss is directly above you, but for the bosses and enemies this spell does help with, it makes them a lot easier. At this point in the run, we're starting to approach late game territory, meaning that all the areas to come will have the possibility to end the run, so it's important that you take your time and are always aware of your health and surroundings. After collecting the spell, we make our way back to where we were and continue left and down. Once we reach the second room below, here we have an arena made of 2 waves of these Mantis Petras. These enemies will spawn in these discs that move directly to our position before arcing straight upwards. As I said in the beginning of Queen's Garden, the enemies here are very strong, so make sure you aren't being stingy with your spells. The next room requires us to hit a lever at the other side of some platforming, and after we've done that, we have a long room of parkour mixed in with a ton of enemies to get through. After we reach the end, we want to make sure that we're at full HP, as there's a long and hard arena coming up. So, if you're low HP, then make sure you grab the bench to the left. Now, once we climb up the wall in the long room, we make our way into the arena. In this arena, we have to survive 6 different waves of enemies, comprising of the Thorn Shooters, Mantis Petras, and these scary looking mantises called Mantis Traders. Keep in mind the moveset of these traders, as a later boss will be a bigger and even scarier looking version of these littler ones. Like in most gang fights, you can lure them all to the same level and hit them all with fireballs. My biggest tip in particular though is to kill the Petras as soon as you can, so that they aren't spamming annoying projectiles at us while we deal with the other enemies. Now, we just have one more long run around this giant room where we can go through this hidden wall to enter the Queen's Garden Stag Station. Before we make our way into Deepness, we want to kill the dream grave boss Mamu. Now, I don't know what people's opinions are on Mamu, but in my opinion this has got to be one of the worst fights in the game. Mamu's only move is to bounce directly at us, so we have to batter away to avoid getting hit. The problem with this fight is that after a couple of bounces, she'll reset herself before starting to bounce again, which always threw off my timing. What I didn't learn about this fight until after this challenge was that you can spam Descending Dark as she respawns, which both deals a lot of damage and gives you the iframes to not get hit, but otherwise you just sort of have to get used to juggling her until she dies. Now, we can make our way into Deepness. The path down is pretty annoying and dangerous, but as long as you're alert and thorough, there shouldn't be too many issues going down. Now, we just have to go left to the distant village, where we can go inside this cocoon and grab this bench along the way, and... What? Why is this? Hey, what are you... Get away! After being trapped, we have to make our way around this maze to reach Hurrah Jimmy Beast, the mother of Miss Silksong. For the path around the maze, you'll know you're going the right way if you keep running into these giant spider enemies, who shield themselves off, and if they damage you, will deal 2 damage. For these guys, you have to bait out their attack, and as soon as they open themselves up, you can get a slash in and dash away. Now, once reaching the final room with Hurrah, we can use our Dream Nail on her and take out her seal. With the first Dreamer under our belt, now's a good time to return to Seer. With our 950 essence, Seer will give us the Dreamgate ability as well as our second pale ore that we need for +3. Before we head to the Nailsmith, Seer has just opened up the room directly to our right. If we go in here with our double jump, we can go through this gap in the wall and collect another King's Idol for if we don't have enough Geo. Now, once we make our way back to King Station, we can set a portal and upgrade our nail for the final time. Next up, we want to get the King's Brand so that we can enter the Abyss for the final upgrades. To do this, from King Station, we head under the secret wall to get to Kingdom's Edge. From here, we can bounce off the wall and crystal dash across this gap to skip a good amount of running. And after making our way through the area, the only thing standing between us and the brand is Hornet once again. Our second fight with Hornet was one of my biggest struggles in this game. When I first played the game, it was the boss I got stuck on the longest, and even after some practice, it still managed to take away a run. Like with most repeat bosses, her moveset stays mostly the same, however after staggering her a couple times, she gains an extra move where she puts up 2 to 3 spike balls around the arena. Like the other fights that require crowd control, we want to get rid of the balls as soon as we can, either by using the fireballs or whacking them out of the way with our nail. My biggest tip however is that if the balls start getting out of hand, you can Desolate Dive to create a big shockwave, which will essentially clear out half of the arena. Once you take her down, she'll complement our strength and open up access to the King's Brand. With the brand in hand, oh, I like that. With the brand in hand, we can make our way into the Abyss through the door that now opens up from the ancient basin. From here, once we free-fall all the way to the floor, we want to head to the left first. At the far left side, we find this stone block. If we use the Howling Wraith spell while standing on top of this rock, it will upgrade the spell into Howling Shriek. As I mentioned before, the upgrade to the spell will double the damage output, now making the spell deal 120 damage per use if all 3 ticks hit. Now we make our way to the right side, where we have to climb up this light tower to hit this lever before we crystal dash across the lake. You have to be really careful with the climb up to the tower though, as these ghosts will deal 2 damage per hit, so you want to make sure you're going one at a time, killing all of them before you get too far ahead. After making our way around, we can jump into the black water fountain, and as soon as we do, we unlock the Shade Cloak ability. Now, whenever we dash, we get iframes for as long as the dash lasts. But we can't just spam dash to be invincible. After we use the Shade Cloak, these black particles spawn around the night. The only time we can use this invincible dash is when the black particles go back inside us, which will be 1.5 seconds after we use it initially. And now, we can use the Dream Gate that we set up earlier to avoid the tedious climb out of the Abyss. Now that we're out of the Abyss, before we do any of the challenging bosses, I like to get my 9th mask. This might be a little overkill, but it's better safe than sorry. Right now, if you've followed from what I've been saying, we should have 2 mask fragments, so for the final 2, we can knock them out while we also do some of the easier Dreamgrave bosses. First, we stack to Green Path Station, and take the same path we did earlier, as if we're going to Queen Station. At about the halfway point, we'll run into the Stone Sanctuary, where we can fight the boss, No Eyes. In this fight, these No Eye ghost faces go in a wave pattern across the arena, all while she's teleporting around the arena just to be annoying. At this point in the run, with how strong our guy is now, there shouldn't be too much issue even if you're just face tanking the damage. But if you happen to be struggling with her, I'd recommend not trying to chase her around the arena and only go to hit her when she teleports near you. Upon defeat, she'll grant us with 200 essence, and then we can go and grab our 3rd mask fragment that was hidden behind her. Our next fight is along the path towards the Mantis village. Here, we take on Elder Who, I don't know, who spawns rings from above us that we have to dash to get out of the way of. This guy is pretty intuitive to fight, but if you're struggling, you can time your Shade Cloak to dodge through his rings, meaning you don't even have to be in a good position to avoid damage. And after taking him out, we want to make our way to the room above the Mantis village. Here, we can use the Mantis claws to climb this wall and continue down to the start of Deep Nest, where the last mask fragment will be waiting for us to collect it. Finally, all of our upgrades are complete, but all that's left is a boss rush made of some of the scariest bosses in the run. To explain what we have to do next, let me introduce how we get the true ending. To take out the Radiance, we need what's called the Void Charm, which is what grants us the ability to take command of the Void. To get this, we need to bring together both of the two Kingsoul halves, which are locked behind two very dangerous areas, and bring them to the bottom of the abyss. The first one we can get by beating the Traitor Lord and meeting up with the Pale King's wife, aka the White Tree Lady. But for the second one, the requirements are a lot more. To get it, we need to go through the White Palace, a very difficult platforming section. But before we can even take on that area, we need to upgrade our Dream Nail, which she will do once we visit her with 1800 Essence. Finally, once we get the Void Heart, we have to make sure that all of the Dreamer's seals are gone so that we can take on and enter the Hollow Knight's dream world, where finally we can take out the Radiance. From where we go here, we need to take out the Dreamers so that we can fight the White Defender for enough essence. Ideally, we go in order of dangers so that in case we die, we're losing the least amount of time. So to start, I go to take out Lurien, who's found in the City of Tears up in the Watcher's Spire. But before we can take out Lurien, we have to beat the Watcher Knights, a group of 6 fatties that take turns in groups of 2 to take us out. In terms of these guys' movesets, they're almost the simplest bosses in the game, but because we're fighting 2 at a time, it creates a lot of nuance in how the fight can go. Before we even start the fight, there's a secret passage above the arena where we can cut the ropes to a chandelier and instantly take out one of the knights, meaning now we only have to deal with 5 of them. For the individual moves, the knights have 3 options. When you're close enough, like with most common enemies, the knight will do a 2-part slash. Whilst there's only one alive, we can walk up to them, hit them twice, and then walk out of the way of the attack to get damage in while not wasting any soul. The other 2 moves involve the knight rolling, where they can either roll directly across the floor or bounce 3 times to our current location. These moves are the main difficulty of the fight, because when multiple knights are active together, we have to keep up with both variants coming at us at weird timings. So the way we want to do this fight is while they dash towards us, we use a Descending Dark, which will both deal a decent chunk of their health, and also give the iframes to avoid any weird movements. Last thing, provided there's not one on top of you, you can use the Dream Nail on them as they spawn in to get some extra soul. And if you can get through all 5 of them, we can now take the elevator up to Lurien's room, where we can enter their dream and take out their seal. After taking out our second Dreamer, the next step I took was to grab the first half of the Kingsoul. From the Queen's Garden station, we make our way upwards, going through these 2 rooms with some pretty difficult platforming. And directly after we make it through the second room, we get straight into the next boss. A part of the fight, before the boss spawns, we have the chance to take out 3 Mantis traders, which will let us heal our health or gain soul if we were missing any in the first place. Then, once we take them out, down comes the Traitor Lord. Like I said before, half of the Traitor Lord's moves are recycled from its smaller counterparts. But the moveset isn't what makes this boss scary. Every time we get hit by the Traitor Lord, he'll deal double damage, so our 9 health practically turns into 5 for this fight. The key to this fight is to abuse iframes. Every time Traitor Lord goes for a move, we can use Desolate Dive, which while also helping us dodge, will deplete his health very fast. For the other moves that aren't the basic dash and slash, Traitor Lord has 2. First, there's a move where he'll shoot out 2 of the Petra discs, but unlike the Petras, they'll move in a wave-like pattern. I find that if we stay close enough to him while we fight, he doesn't end up doing this move. But even if he does, all you have to do is stay in between the 2 discs, and Shade Cloak if you really need to. For his other move though, Trader Lord will start attacking the ground, which will create a shockwave the height of the whole arena. So because we can't go over it, simply dash through it. And if you can consistently spam dives, then the Trader Lord should go down without too much issue. And now, we can collect the first Kingsoul half from the White Lady. Now, we want to take out our last streamer named Monomon. From either Green Path or Queen Station, we have to make our way to the teacher's archives. After entering and making our way down, there'll be a giant jellyfish named Umu blocking off the way forward. In this fight, while Umu is big, all of our attacks will bounce off her, so to actually deal damage, we have to wait for when this dude named Quirrell hits her, Kasa! Which will shrivel up the jellyfish. Umu has 2 attacks, both involving the lightning that we saw coming down here. First off, Umu can spawn lightning on our current position. For this, we want to circle the arena so that this way we have enough space and platforms to outrun it. If we don't get this move, Umu will instead spawn lightning randomly across the arena. The best place for us to be while this attack is happening is hanging around the wall, as most of the time there'll be a nice gap for us to sit in. Other than that, you can use your Dream Nail on her to get more soul, and with a bit of patience she should go down with no problems. Which finally leaves us to meet Quirrell at this tank that houses Monomon's resting body. Now that all the dreamers are out of the way, we change our focus back to collecting essence. Unfortunately, we've left the 2 perfect bosses. Since these final 2 bosses take place in the Dream Realm, it's physically impossible for them to end the run. First of all, we want to head back to the Dung Defender, where now, when we go under to the King's Idol, he'll be taking a nap to the left. And as soon as we enter his dream, we now get to take on the White Defender. Now, I haven't been covering these repeat bosses because for the most part they don't really change too much, but that isn't the case for these last 2. The main difference we see in the White Defender fight is that we can't just spam Descending Darks, because they no longer bump him out of the ground. So instead, we want to be standing as close as we can to him so that we can continuously build up soul to hit him with fireballs. The White Defender also has 2 new moves. Once he gets bored of being a ball, he'll do a swan dive into the ground, which will create a shockwave of spikes coming from the floor. For this, we need to make sure we have the Shade Cloak available so that we can dash through it. Otherwise, you should have enough time to get a heal off if you're fast enough. Also, while he's standing on the ground, he can do a quick slam. While this does also create a shockwave of spikes, unlike the dive, the spikes will only go a small distance from him, so for this, if we're in range, we can dash backwards to avoid it. A fun thing to know is that if you can catch him turning into a ball, you're actually able to juggle him until he dies. This is because you can't actually stagger him, so if he's trapped in the air as a ball, he won't be able to pull off any more moves. After defeating the White Defender, the final bit of essence will come from the failed champion. Remember at the very start of the video where we went over False Knight? Well now, the game goes full circle, and it's time to take on his dream variant. To my knowledge, the moveset is the exact same, but way faster, and he spawns way more rocks from above. Now before we take on this fight, we want to equip this charm that we got from Sia earlier on. What this does is it'll speed up the time it takes to use our Dream Nail by 37.5%, and it'll also give us twice the amount of soul per Dream Nail swing. You'll understand why we need this in a second, but for now, you have to choose whether you want to get another charm notch from Subaru, or take off the Fragile Heart charm for a bit. I personally chose the extra charm notch, but since you can't die in the fight, both paths are pretty valid. Just watch out for these goons along the way. In this fight, our main strategy is to get into a position to Dream Nail him, and blast him with fireballs. Keep in mind however, when we hit him with our normal nail, like with his Dream World counterpart, we won't gain any soul. So for this reason, we need to use the Dream Nail on him to get the soul to deal our damage. Against the failed champion, because of how fucking large he is, a single fireball will hit him up to 3 separate times, meaning every time we send out a fireball, he can take up to 120 damage. The pattern I recognized while playing this fight is that he always does an initial jump attack before choosing his actual move. You see here, while we're far enough away, his first move will always land in front of us, then on his second one, he has the chance to jump over us or jump backwards for a shockwave slam. Every time he does the jump move for a second time, we want to dash under him and use the Dream Nail, which then builds up enough soul for us to hit him with 2 fireballs. Other than that, you just have to wait and dodge the attacks until you get the good one, and after a few staggers, he'll send himself through the floor again, granting us with more than enough essence to get the awoken Dream Nail. Finally, all that's left with the run is arguably the 2 hardest parts. Before we can fight the Radiance, we have to collect the second half of the Kingsoul from the White Palace. White Palace is where boys turn into men. If at any point you found the platforming around the map difficult, then get ready for the game to turn it up to 11. Now, when I was doing White Palace for this run, I actually missed out on a lot of easy skip opportunities, which actually made it harder for myself. So instead of following exactly what I did, I'm gonna let everyone in on the secrets. Also, to save time, I'm gonna assume you've done this area before and not explain every little timing. But I will show me going through it and get into specific strategies / skips that I found to make some of the trickier parts more consistent. Before we even start the area, we want to equip the Mark of Pride charm. This charm increases the range of our melee, which will help us out a lot with pogoing. The first room is pretty self-explanatory. We only need to make it past this fight so that we can click open this lever that opens up the elevator. In this second room, I like to do the right side first. Once we reach this room, we can look down for when the saw is out of the way, and jump directly to the platform near the opening, skipping a couple of jumps. The next obstacle we have to worry about is this drop down with moving saws. For every 2 times the middle saw comes into view, the far right saw will be right next to it. For this, we want to drop right as the 2 are reaching the top, because when we go through the gap, the saw that's on the left side where we're trying to get will be out of the way. Now, just wait for the saw to reach its peak and drop to the bottom. Right, now for the left side. Once we reach this opening, we can drop below the floor and cling onto the wall. If we go to the middle of the wall and hit a crystal dash, we're able to skip a decent chunk of parkour. For this last lot of 3 saws, I like to use the crystal dash for its fast acceleration. Also, make sure you drop down here. The upper route leads to the same place, but adds a lot of extra steps for no reason at all. Also, this should have been obvious. No, I'm not doing Path of Pain for this challenge. What's this? What? No, 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 no!
Wait, Eminem just said it as well.
Oh god, that's what I'm saying, Eminem. In my opinion, the hardest part of White Palace is this climb right here. It just feels really awkward, and when you get hit by the bugs, most of the time you'll get bumped into a saw, making you take 2 damage. If you're getting weak around this area, I'd recommend jumping back to the floor below so that you can sit at the bench. Here, after we jump over this saw, we can use this other saw to pogo up onto this wall, which will skip a decent amount of stuff. Once we reach the top of the wall, we can use this light pole to pogo up to this area above. This jump is a little bit tricky, but luckily we have 2 chances at this. Whether you make it up the normal way or through the skip, we can do this other skip now to the right. You don't actually have to time the jump here, you're actually able to pogo off the left side. From here, there's actually a broken wall that lets us completely skip the annoying spears above us. And now, for this drop, you want to wait until the spears have disappeared to jump through the first layer, and once we're through, you can tap the double jump to get past the second. This bug here is the last chance to get full HP again. Every time you attack the bug, it'll regenerate itself and give us infinite soul. Make sure you abuse this. And that's it, just attack the Pale King's corpse, and we can now complete the Kingsoul. Okay, last thing before we can end the game, we now have to turn the Kingsoul into the Void Heart. Once returning to the real world, sit at the bench at the hidden station, so that we can equip the Kingsoul and start making our descent into the Abyss. At the bottom of the main room, while we have the Kingsoul equipped, the ground will open up from below us. In these tunnels, the shade enemies will make a return, so you want to make sure you're taking them out one by one along the way. And after making our way to the final room, we can use our dream nail on this egg, which will take us to a flashback of us escaping the Abyss. After making the tedious climb up, we get to see the young Hollow Knight. And shortly after, our grip slips and we plummet back down to the bottom, changing our Kingsoul into the Void Charm. With that, there's nothing left for us to do but to march our way into the Black Egg and take on our final fights. For the final part of the game, we have to defeat the Hollow Knight, which will unlock the fight against the Radiance. Upon entering the Black Egg, make sure you don't forget to re-equip your charms, and as we enter the arena, we have to take out the chains that are keeping the Hollow Knight bound. The Hollow Knight fight is made of 4 phases, made up of 7 different attacks. In the first phase, he can only use 3 of the attacks, the triple slash, dash, and parry move, which all leave him susceptible to pogoing. So, for the first phase, you want to be abusing pogos to build up soul and use fireballs for the double hits. Once you deal enough damage to him, he'll let out his first scream. This signifies the phase change, where now he'll unlock 2 more moves. Now, he can spit out these infection blobs, which we can either dodge through using the Shade Cloak, or if we're close enough, we can pogo over him to get behind him. The other move is one that causes the most problems, however. The Hollow Knight will either jump or teleport into the air, meaning now the pogo strategy won't work. After he's in the air, he'll drive his needle into the ground, which will spawn in these pillars, telegraphed by the light on the floor. If we get hit by this attack, the pillars will deal 2 damage, so you really want to be careful that we're standing in the right spot. After his second scream, the Hollow Knight will have a few seconds of clarity. They come back into control of the vessel and start to stab themselves repeatedly, trying to help us take them out. We can use this opportunity to heal if necessary, and after this, he'll unlock his final 2 moves. The Hollow Knight can now float into the air and bounce up and down as if he's a down ball. Obviously, you have to dodge out of the way, but you're actually able to get a hit in every time he lands on the floor. Lastly, after jumping into the air, the Hollow Knight can turn into an infection sprinkler. I don't think I have to explain how to dodge this one. And finally, once we get them down to 0 HP, they'll do one last scream. During this scream, Miss Silksong will come in to hold down the Hollow Knight, allowing us to use our Dream Nail to enter into its dream.
What, are we gonna fight the sun?
For the grand finale of this run, we have to take down God herself. The Radiance has been deemed one of the hardest bosses in gaming, and now we have to beat her at the very end of this multi-hour run. This fight is comprised of 3 stages, the initial ground stage, the hardest part being the platforming stage, and then finally, the climb. In this fight, Radiance can do 6 types of attacks, which all will deal double damage. And whilst dealing with them, you also have to be aware of what's going on below you, as in the first phase, spikes will come out of the floor. The attacks we see go like this. First, Radiance will spawn these light balls that home into our position. Like with the fireballs from Dracula Flows earlier, we want to dodge through them so that they break on the floor. Next up, Radiance will spawn a wall of spikes that travel from one side of the screen to the other. My tip for this is that if you don't have time to dodge them normally, you can dash through them with the Shade Cloak. Next up, the same spears will rain down from above. Unlike with the first move, the dash here won't save us, but something to know is that you can fit through the smaller gaps of the spikes. For the fourth move, Radiance will spawn a ring of spears from around their face. I'd personally recommend using this move to heal. Next, she'll call in a light beam that goes from one side to the other, which we have to Shade Cloak through. And lastly, from in front of her face, she'll shine these lines of light that after a second will turn into a laser a total of 3 separate times. My biggest recommendation for this fight is to not try and chase her down. When you're patient and wait for her to come to you, you'll be putting yourself in better positions to dodge the attacks, and won't get caught in between stuff like the spike walls. Right before we take the Radiance into the second phase, she'll have a mini second phase inside of the first. Here, she'll start spamming the Spike Rain move until we hit her enough times to put her down. This move is easy to dodge, but it's equally as easy to get impatient, so try to avoid doing that. I'd also recommend building up your soul meter here, so that when the move is done, we can get a full 3 health back, or just have a lot of soul to start phase 2. Now, once she falls over, she'll create these steps for us to climb into the new arena. The second phase's arena is comprised of these 6 platforms. It's even more important here that we're patient and wait for her to come to us, because the distance between platforms can create really awkward scenarios that leave us without a dash. The moves stay the same as the first phase, but they do feel a little different due to her position changing more often between platforms. At the very beginning, she always spawns on the bottom middle platform, so here we can spam Howling Shrieks to nuke her down. In the best case scenario, she'll do both the fireball and light triangle moves that won't let her teleport away and let us nuke down the whole phase. But most likely, after 2 shrieks she'll teleport to some annoying place in the fight, which again we just need the patience to wait. After we deal enough damage, the Radiance will teleport upwards for the final time, and now we have to make the climb. A series of jumps where the Radiance will be firing lasers at us along the way. For this, you can get into a rhythm with the laser, and once you reach the top, one hit is all it'll take to take her out, marking the end of the run. Alright, now it's time for me to talk about my journey with this challenge. When I first started this challenge, I'd literally never played Hollow Knight before, and so obviously, before I started to do anything with no death, I had to play the game for the first time. As I said in the intro, the original plan for this video was to do a 100% completion in Steel Soul, and so for my first ever playthrough, I ran around with my friend guiding me along the way to help me 112% the game.
If your movement was condensed into a Minecraft, a Terraria sword with a prefix, it'd be a shoddy wooden sword.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those who know the
yeah.
shoddy wooden sword, that's a throwback.
Usually with games such as Elden Ring, I like to run around and take my time learning the game, so that by around the 100-hour mark, I pretty much have the game down. But I think for this game, my idea for making this video drove me to want to learn the game as fast as possible. And to be honest, I don't think it took away any enjoyment of the first playthrough for me. In fact, I think I even enjoyed it more than I would have if I had gone in blind, because there's a lot of exploring and learning the map, especially because of how big it is. I ended up breezing through a decent amount of the game, really only getting stuck on major dream bosses like Lost Kin and Failed Champion, up until it was time to beat the Hollow Knight. The main problem I faced, which was especially seen in the Hornet 2 fight, was that I always just dashed into the bosses for whatever reason. It was like I was stuck in a speedrunner mindset of always wanting to be dealing damage to the boss, and so oftentimes I'd literally just run right into them, which would always zap away my health. I eventually did the Collectathon and got past Coliseum 3 after struggling for a couple hours and got my save file to 110%, which to this day I had never ended up completing. But I was just so excited to start working on the video's run that I just decided to get the last 2% in the Steel Soul run. Now, obviously we saw how that run ended, but to be honest, it was probably a blessing in disguise, because my god, that would have been a painful run to edit. Also, I was having doubts because I was using quitouts for that run, making it pretty much impossible for me to die as long as I was playing safe or wasn't going mentally AFK. Now, if you watched my previous video where I beat Undertale without getting hit, you may remember that I complained about losing runs after an hour or sometimes even 30 minutes. And so obviously in this game, when I'm losing runs 2 to 3 to 11 plus hours deep, you might think that I would have just started to spaz out and have a heart attack or something like that. But I think because this game felt so fresh to me, and also that I was constantly doing something, unlike in some other game, that even after I lost the 11-hour run, even though I obviously never wanted to do it again, I was able to just laugh it off and say it would be a funny clip for the video and then just change the challenge to this one, which once again I enjoyed even more. Getting into my attempts, I routed the run beforehand purely by looking at the map and remembering what I needed to grab, so when I did the actual run, I ended up getting stuck at multiple places trying to get to areas that I was meant to leave for later. My first run of the challenge got ended to the Soul Warrior right before the Fireball upgrade, which was about 2 hours into the route at that point. Mostly what had tripped me up was that I didn't know how to use the fireballs properly, and oftentimes I would just forget that I had them in the first place, so the crowd control in that specific fight ended up being the downfall of me. Is that thing that kills me? It was the little bum before the upgraded fireball. Just like, he kept spawning the things, but I don't one-shot them, so AIDS. Well, that's like 2.5 hours. After that death, I was left a little frustrated, but that being said, as it was only my first run, the overwhelming urge to keep playing pulled me back in for another attempt. Before doing this run though, I thought about the most efficient way to go about this challenge. Usually, what I've learned from watching the Souls challenge runner Gino Machino was that he always starts with low stake attempts, where he wouldn't reset his no hit runs even after getting hit, so that he knew where he had to practice the most. I'd adapted this into my Undertale no-hit run, so this seemed to be the best way to go about this challenge as well. However, there was a problem that I faced with this. There was only 2 ways I could recreate these low-stake runs in this game. The first option I had was to do a run on the classic mode so that I could simply respawn when I died. This may seem like the obvious way to go, but for me, the thought of accidentally completing the challenge in the wrong mode was enough to make me rule this out. The other option I had was to continue playing the Steel Soul mode and just use quitouts whenever I got close to dying. This way, I could safely know what the problem sections of the run were, while also giving myself the chance to get the run if I didn't end up needing to quit out. And so with this plan in mind, I set out to do my first Steel Soul run. That's also an exploding guy. I did not know that was an exploding guy. Okay, that's fine. Simple mistake. I just didn't want to quit out. I thought I could keep the run going. Don't worry, next time I'll do it properly so I can start practicing or whatever. OTS ain't even gonna be worth it. Oh. I am 1 HP, but I should have just quit out. Yeah. Fucking damn it. They do change. Where do I go? I need to learn that fuck. I'm not even dying at the fucking boss fights. I'm just dying on the way. My ego to keep the runs alive didn't allow me to quit out, as I genuinely thought I was able to just raw dog the challenge. At this point, it was getting really late, so I decided to pick up the challenge the next day. On the 28th, after a little bit of convincing from my friends, I decided that enough was enough. I needed to let go of my ego and suck it up so that I could actually make some progress with the challenge. And so, I did my first actual full run of the challenge by playing in the classic mode. Damn it. 6 hours. Motherfucking damn, dude. Thankfully, I made the right decision by doing practice run, because I ended up dying a lot. Specifically, there were some bosses such as Hornet 2 and Radiance that I knew I'd struggle with, but the main surprise to me was how much I struggled with the Watcher Knights. In my first 2 runs, by the time I fought them, I was strong enough to completely annihilate them. So this time, when I had a weaker nail and a lot less health, I was the one getting destroyed. At this point, I wasn't doing the White Defender boss to get essence, and instead was doing Markoth for 200, which would still barely be enough for the run. And so this meant I didn't have to do the Dreamers until much later. So after this run, I pushed them back to be one of the very last things I did, so that I was as strong as I could get. After 6 hours of playing, it was getting pretty late, but before I got off, I decided I wanted to start a run for the next day, so that I could skip the first hour or so of setup. I ended up playing for another 3 hours, only quitting after a bunch of losses against Failed Champ, who at this point I was doing just after killing Hurrah. I planned on waking up the next day, warming up by practicing the future bosses a bit, and then I would close out the run, but after a solid warm up and fight with the champ, it was time for me to face Hornet 2. Ow. Damn it. God damn it, bro. Oh man, I was fucking practicing this fight as well, and I get hit early on, and it's over. Right after that death, I hopped straight into another run with conflicting emotions. That's the first death that makes me like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Obviously, losing a 3-hour run was rough, but after speedrunning my way through the game, those feelings started to dissipate. Since I was constantly racing to go as fast as possible, there was never a dull moment. So that and being in a call yapping with my friends made the time loss feel a lot more bearable. You died to this guy? I've never died to this guy before.
I told you, one of my 2 deaths in my original run was this guy. At that move. I jumped into that move.
You freaking died in Hollow Knight? I didn't even freaking know you could die in Hollow Knight.
I freaking died in Hollow Knight.
And I did Nightmare King Gwyn, let me tell you that much.
There's no way you can freaking die in this game, bro. This game is so easy.
Die. I didn't even know there was a freaking health system. I got
I just never got hit. That run ended up dying to the Mantis Lord after I got baited by an attack into thinking I could heal, but I kept powering through to the next run. Before I cover the next run, there's a couple of problems with the pathing that I was doing that I have to point out. As I alluded to earlier, at this point, to get my essence, I was doing Zero, No Eyes, Elder Hugh, Lost Kin, Failed Champion, and then Markoth. Now, if you're into Hollow Knight, you probably understand what I mean when I say that Markoth is easily the worst boss in the entire game by a long shot. He constantly spawns the undying spears from around the arena, and on top of that he has not 1, but 2 shields spinning around him to not let us near him. At this point, my strategy for him was to just run directly into him and spam him with as many abyssal shrieks as fast as possible, because 90% of the time during practice, it would kill him before he killed me. But sometimes, as soon as I'd run into him to nuke him down, he'd run as far away as he could and stay in spots that would make it stupidly difficult to reach him while also avoiding all his moves. 3 hours into the run, I had reached my new distance PB, with only Markoth, the Watcher Knights, White Palace, and then the Radiance left in the run. Man, oh, I hate this fight so much. Now this death tilted me so much, I didn't even remember to stop recording before I went into the Hall of Gods that I could prove that Markoth was just trolling me because it was a real run. But after the same thing happened, I decided it was best to reroute the run to skip him altogether. The Watcher Knights were the scariest part of the run for me. So you know that Markoth pissed me off when I was willing to move them forward by so much just to avoid him. I also questioned how strong I should be getting for the run. If I got stronger, the fights would become easier, but then it would take more time to get the items like Mars Fragments to get more health. Then my friend brought up the Fragile Heart charm.
If you're really scared about your health, you could also use the Unbreakable Heart charm or whatever that gives you 2 extra health.
You give 2? I think it gives 1.
Yeah, it's 2. No, 2.
It's 2?
It's yeah, bro.
Yeah.
That charm's so good. I always use it. Look at how much health you have. It's a gazillion.
Oh, I think I found
It's
what I'm
actually,
using.
bro.
I have
like-
9 HP? Wait, that'll make this challenge free low.
Yeah, bro. Just why don't you use? Oh,
I didn't know it did
ask you
2.
about
I
that.
thought it did 1.
Yeah.
Originally, I thought that the charm only gave 1 extra mask for the cost of 3 charm notches, which to me sounded like a horrible deal. That's where I was mistaken. After being told to check it out, it turned out for the cost of 2 notches, it gave 2 masks, which was way better than the soul catcher that I was using at that point. With the new discoveries, I excitedly hopped into my next run, which just so happened to be the one. Bang! No death, Hollow Knight. Easy game. First try, first ever run of this. This game is easy. No quit outs either. That health really made a difference, holy shit. I don't think I really went below the 2 health, I mean. But like, just knowing that I had the extra 2 health was like infinite confidence. Overall, including the amount of time it took me to complete the game for the first time, the failed 112% run, and then the attempts at the true ending no quit outs run, this challenge took me just over a week to beat, or about 60 hours of playtime. But in saying that, I'd say only a quarter of the days were actual attempts of the run. After a little bit of boss practice in the Hall of Gods, it ended up only taking me 8 real attempts to get the run. So in terms of difficulty, I'd definitely say this is one of my easier challenges I've done. Now, I'm not sure if anyone actually cares about this part, but I think it will be good for myself to add this in for reflection later down the line. Most of the challenge posed by this video was during the post-production portion of it. After the time crunches I'd done for my last 2 challenge videos, I had a ridiculous expectation of how much I could grind out this video. I wanted to get this one out within 3 weeks of uploading the Undertale one, but since I spent a week after Undertale trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I was only left with 2 weeks to beat Hollow Knight for the first time, finish the challenge, and then edit the whole video. At first, that seemed pretty doable, but it obviously ended up not being possible. I ended up stressing myself out more than necessary trying to meet what I thought was a pretty reasonable deadline. The main problem was that I kept putting off working on the video because I was like, yeah, this video is probably going to be like 30-40 minutes long. I can easily finish that in a week. And then by the time I got 20 minutes into the script, I realized that this video was going to be a lot bigger than I first anticipated, mostly because of the run length. I was also always in the work now or you're wasting time mindset that I got stuck in while doing the Undertale runs, and it completely destroyed my motivation to make the video. I ended up getting sick around this time, and so I took a couple of days break to relax and get better. This was also when Silksong came out, so I ended up watching my friends play that, which was pretty fun. And so after delaying the video for a week, the pressure lifted and I was able to enjoy the video making process once again. As for my future with these challenges, I do enjoy playing these couple hour long, more endurance challenges because to me they're the most impressive. But in saying that, the video process of these are often pretty annoying and take the most amount of time. I really enjoy making the journey parts of my videos, and I think that they're the strongest parts of these challenges. But often they're locked behind 30+ minutes of explaining the game. I do still like the tutorials of the runs that I do, because whenever I go to beat the challenges for myself, I always wish there's a guide to the challenge to help me out, so for all future videos I'll continue to do them. But the main point I'm trying to make here is that I want to avoid doing these extremely long challenge runs so that I can make these videos more about both the challenge and experience without having to make multiple hour-long videos to cover everything about the challenge. Besides that, I want to thank everyone for the insane support on the Undertale video, as I'd worked on that video for a long time and I'm very grateful that all my hard work got recognized. If you watched this far into the video, then just know that I really appreciate you, and I hope to see you in the next video.